Uncle Chuck, hello, hello. I'm so excited. I've been trying for a while, and I finally got multi-streaming to work. I went live last night. I was trying to figure out how to multi-stream, and it didn't work. And I figured, well, I'm there. So me and Lucius and the others chatted and played Persona 4. I'm old. I was asleep. It's okay. It's fine. Bod's there for a reason if you want to watch. If not, that's okay too. So Lucius, welcome, welcome. Guess what? I got multi-streaming to work. Yes, thank you, Uncle Chuck. So we are streaming to both YouTube and Twitch. If you prefer YouTube over Twitch, you're welcome to stop in over there. Or if you'd like to stay over on Twitch, that's okay. I have both chats up, so I'll be able to see both messages regardless. Yeah, now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. I'm very excited. So I actually figured out what was going on, and it's so silly and stupid, honestly. So when you go to multi-stream, you'll naturally want to go and grab the stream URL on the studio. That is not where you get it. Up at the top in the corner, there's a drop-down menu that says stream key, default stream. You need to take and hit the copy button that's closest to the right-hand corner, and that is your stream key. So I think that's where everybody's getting stuck, because that is what has gotten me for the last week or so. I thought it was the stream URL or the backup server URL. It's not. I don't know why they would hide it like that, and all the other instructions online don't really reflect where that information actually is. They're going off of old stuff. So you do have to use string keys. I was sorry. I do feel, yeah, the hidden key, exactly. Yeah, it is stream keys. So it got me confused. So all the other instructions, even on Atom, which is what I'm using now, the screenshots they would use in their instructions had the stream key in the wrong spot. They moved it. And Atom and Streamlabs and everywhere else has not updated it. But Luke is trying out all the new emotes. Yep. Very sneaky. Exactly, Funko Chuck. So I only really plan on streaming for a couple hours or so, since we're just doing reading and chatting. Because I don't know if my voice is going to be able to handle it otherwise. Thank you. Thank you. If I can figure out how to do emotes on YouTube, I definitely will, but I don't think they have that option just yet. Yeah. especially since I'm going to be streaming tomorrow with Hightail, I think. Yeah, I'll probably go with Hightail. Most of the stuff that I've seen online says it's good to at least stick to one category consistently, and I started with Hightail, and it's still popular. I know there's some way to have YouTube emotes, but I don't know how you unlock it. Yeah, I don't know either. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, I'm going to sound a little rough if we go too long with the stream. But once I can figure out how to do that, mark my words, I will definitely be adding some of the emotes over there just to keep everybody, covered. But from now on, I will be cross-streaming over on YouTube. Now that I've finally figured it out. Yes, I just figured it out, Visaria. So, I'm using Atom. It's a plugin for OBS. And it's really simple, but YouTube has been hiding the stream key. It's up in the right-hand corner on the preview for the stream. And there's like a copy button. And it doesn't tell you that's how you get the stream key or anything. It just says stream key : default stream. I'll have to do some screenshots and post it up on TikTok for everyone to see, because I don't want anybody else to get stuck like I did. We're going to give everybody else a chance to get in. I know a lot of people were really excited about this stream. Just don't share the key. So how it works, Uncle Chuck, is it doesn't actually show the key. There's just a copy button. There's nothing that shows the key. So thankfully I won't have to worry about that. But I was really excited. I finally managed to figure it out. And I'm going to be showing off where I can for everybody else so they can see. Because I've heard that a lot of people are having trouble figuring out how to multi-stream. Yes. So I do have an official schedule now. Last night was just a surprise stream, but my official schedule is 1 a.m. UTC, Thursdays and Fridays, every week, unless stated otherwise. I will be sure to post and update my schedule on Twitch if there's any changes, but that's where it works out on the week. Thursdays are going to be variety streams, so that's just going to be whatever game we're working through, or if I'm doing another reading stream like this. And then Fridays are going to be for Hightail. And it will be for Hightail until I get tired of Hightail. Which, it still has a lot of stuff that I haven't seen, so I don't think that's going to happen for a little while. Hightail still has more cliffs to fall off of. Exactly. I will fall off of every mountain and drown in every river. I mean, explore. Definitely inspiring. Hope core. Sure, a hope core. I'll get a clip of that and then I'll put like the da 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 TikTok hope core on there. So we did get some requests the last official stream we had. And one of them was the creation myth for Dingum, Korean creation myth. And I'll be reading that this stream. And there was some requests for some snippets from the meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And then we also have a request to read Winnie the Pooh. So those are some of the stuff that I'm going to be reading. I'm going to start with the shortest one first. So that's going to be the Korean creation myth. And then I'm going to read at least one or two things of the meditations of Marcus Aurelius. So while we're waiting, I recommend getting some tea or a nice drink. Get cozy. Because apparently my voice is very, very relaxing. And we'll just have a nice, chill night. I certainly need it after all the semester starting and dealing with schoolwork. Okay, I can't stick around, but we'll pop in and watch the VOD later. Okay, I'll see if I can squeeze that in. Letters. I'll definitely see if I can try to squeeze that in. It's split into 10 letters. Don't have to do them all. Do you have any specific letter that you like the most? Okay, so the last. All right, have a great time at work, and we'll see you later on in the VOD, okay? I think we're going to actually start things. Give me a second. I have to run over here. There we go. Once I figure out how to do scene transitions, it's over for everyone. Ah, I hit my mark. Welcome. Hello. Only got 10 minutes, so just going to hang out a bit. Oh, that's fine. That's fine if you can only stop in for a few minutes. We're just having a cozy stream tonight. It's not going to be very long. So if you'd much rather watch the VOD later on, that's perfectly fine. It's there for a reason. I appreciate you stopping in, though. So, fun fact about this outfit, I actually had to change the cardigan's color because the chroma key that I use is green. And it was making my arms look transparent. How are we all doing on this lovely Thursday? I'm doing well. I just woke up from a nap. I stayed up late last night playing Persona 4 with Volusius, Veslaria, and DBK and Ren. So we had a late night last night. But other than that, I'm personally doing well. I hope everybody else is doing well in the chat. Yeah, you can enable transparency in Magic Mirror, but it just sometimes doesn't work out. But I didn't mind. I mean, the orange fits the background a bit better. This is actually from a YouTube video. I couldn't find any other backgrounds that I wasn't sure was from AI or not. The YouTube video is called Cozy Reading Nook Ambience, Rain on Window and Thunder Sounds, Warm Fireplace. And it's done by a user named Cozy Rain. It was posted 3 years ago. So I'm pretty confident that this is an AI. They also posted a link showing that this is actually a 3D model that they did. Oh, you don't have to be sorry. I'm still messing around with a lot of the different trackers and everything. VC Face has a lot of really good features and filters. I remember seeing a VTuber who had their stuff set to look like an old cartoon, and I believe I may have found the settings for that in VC Face, so I was pretty excited. But yeah, I'm gonna get started reading. If you guys want to learn, that's perfectly okay. And just relax. If you need to step out of the stream, feel free to do so. The bot will be here later. I'm going to stop the music. There we go. Listen to that. So the audio in the background is also from the same YouTube video. And let's raise up our voice a little bit. There we go. Yes, very nice rain. If you don't know about her, take a look at Pumpkin Potion. Is that another VTuber? I love looking at other VTubers' work and stuff. It's honestly so fun. I do need to hop out. I'll check out the bot after. Have a great evening, everyone. Well, thank you so much for stopping in. I hit my mark. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great evening, and we'll see you later on in the bot. But yes, I actually really do love watching other VTuber streams. I have been watching one gentleman stream. His name is Benny Bloom. He's a larger creator. I just stumbled across his clips on TikTok and they made me laugh. She's playing Persona 5. That's so funny. That's so funny. I've just always wanted to play Persona 4 because I never ran into any playthroughs. I hit my mark. Thank you so much for the gifted. Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your evening, really. So that's actually really funny. Oh my goodness. I don't think I've got the alerts on this scene. Oh. I knew I would miss something, but I'll read them out verbally. I don't mind. But thank you so much once again for the gifted. It is truly, truly appreciated. All right. So, as stated earlier, we are going to be reading the Korean creation myth. It's the myth of Dingong. I actually had to look up the pronunciations because I know that a lot of Korean pronunciations is very different from any of the more Latin-based languages like English or Germanic. I really need to clear my throat. Goodness. I'm going to be fighting with that during the stream. I'm going to try to mute as often as I can. And so I've got the pronunciation notes on the side. I was actually very proud of myself getting those in. So for some background, I'm using the folkinc.nfm.go.kr website. That's the Encyclopedia of Korean Folk Culture. Oh no, you didn't get a notification, silly kitty. I'm so sorry that happened. I actually noticed that for some reason the number of people who get notifications about my stream went down recently. So maybe Twitch is doing something, but thank you so much for coming in. I've actually finally figured out how to multi-stream to YouTube as well. So if you prefer YouTube, you're welcome to go over there. I have both chats up, just whichever you prefer. Is there a way for me to... I'm going to have to figure that out later. Maybe I need to get a stream deck. But I'm using the Encyclopedia of Korean Folk Culture. We are going to be reading the myth of Dingin Sinhwa. It's the first... Yes, I'm very excited that I got that fixed. It's the first sovereignty myth in Korean mythology. It tells the story of the first kingdom in Korea, Gojo Seon. Seon. I'm feeling less proud about the pronunciation notes. The myth of Daegon is recorded as follows on the website. And it's from a book called The Memorabilia of the Three Kingdoms. I actually bought that after the last stream. So a long time ago, Hwanin, the god of the heavens, noticed that his son, Hwan-un, was nurturing an interest in the human world under the heavens. And Hwanin gazed down at the area around Mount Taebaek. He saw it was an ideal place to found a kingdom and sent his son, Hwanun, to rule the land, giving him the three seals of heaven. Hwanun led a group of 3,000 and descended on the summit of Mount Taebaek, where he began overseeing some 360 affairs of the human world. This included grains, life, disease, punishment, and good and evil, with the wind god, the rainfall god, and the cloud god under his command. At this time, there was a bear and a tiger that lived in the same cave and prayed to Huanan for their wish to become human. Huanan gave them divine mugwort and 20 garlic bulbs, explaining that if you live on this and avoid sunlight for 100 days, you shall acquire the form of humans. The bear turned into a woman after 21 days of observing the taboos, but the tiger failed to abide by them, thereby failing to acquire a human body. The bear was given the name Onyo. Her name is Onyo, and she prayed under the divine altar tree to conceive a child. But there was no one there for her to... Hi, Alfred. Are you just a baby little boy? Hopefully that didn't surprise anybody. Every day, Onyo, the bear woman, prayed under the divine altar tree to conceive a child, but there was no one there for her to marry. So Huan turned into a man and married Onyo, giving birth to a son named Dingum. Yes, the birds are talking. Dingum set up capital at Pyongyang Fortress and named his kingdom Joseon. The capital was moved to Mount Baekak, then Astol, then back to Pyongyang Fortress. 1,500 years into Dingum's rule, China's Zhou dynasty appointed Zhiji to govern Joseon, upon which Dingum moved to Zhangdangyang, then to Osodol. Gosh, forgot to put those up. Where he was deified as a mountain god at the age of 1,908 years. In another book, The Songs of Emperors and Kings, it provides a slightly different account to Dingum's birth, in which Huanin's son descends from the summit of Mount Daebak under the divine altar tree. Spider, welcome. Welcome in. We've already started reading. I've been struggling to get through the Korean creation myth, even though I just bragged about looking up a ton of pronunciations. So I do apologize if I mispronounce anything. But he gave a drug to his granddaughter to turn her into a human, and then arranged a marriage with the altar tree god. And that, in that version, that's where Dingum comes from. Oh, good. I'm glad the vibes are working. The Dingum myth can be categorized as the union of the Sky Father and the Earth Mother, which indicates that the narrative was formed after the establishment of patriarchy on the Korean Peninsula. The myth's protagonist, Hwanyoung, is Hwan-un, but it's referred as Dingum's myth. Dingum, not Hwan-un, is viewed as the progenitor of the Korean people, which is due to the fact that the population of Dinsi, the divine city that Hwan-un founded, was ethnically different from that of Joseon, founded by Dingum. In other words, it's likely that Daegum's Joseon was newly formed through the alliance and expansion of population of Kwanun Sinsi and a bear totem tribe represented by Onyo. The former immigrant population characterized by sun worship and farming. The latter indigenous group characterized by bear worship and subjugate the former. The account of Dengum becoming a mountain god of Asadol signifies that he was worshipped by later generations through religious rituals. The Dengum myth features the three seals of heaven as tokens of rulership, generally interpreted as the divine mirror, which represents rulership over people and is found in tombs of many ancient tribe chiefs on the Korean peninsula. In the form of bronze mirrors, the divine sword, which is the sword of the monarch representing military commandership, and divine rattle, or a divine drum, which are sacred props used in rituals to draw attention of the gods before reporting about human affairs. So I did read this before the stream started, and I thought that little tidbit at the end provided some really great context. So I hope that was really informative. I certainly liked reading it. All right. So let's see. Next we have the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Just give you some background on who Marcus Aurelius is. Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor run from 161 to 180. He was also a philosopher. He was known as one of the 5 good emperors later on. So that's a bit of background on who he is. So we're going to be hitting a lot of Roman mythology. So I ended up grabbing the first meditation. I'm using classics.mit.edu. And we're going to be reading through that first meditation. It is a little short. This was translated by George Long. From my grandfather Venus, I learned good morals and government of my temper. From the reputation and remembrance of my father, modesty and a manly character. It's all great to me. From my mother, piety and beneficious and abstinence. Not only from evil deeds, but even evil thoughts, and farther simplicity in my way of living, far removed from the habits of the rich. From my great-grandfather, not to have frequent public schools, and to have had good teachers at home, and to know on such things that a man should spend liberally. From my governor, to be neither green nor blue, party at the games and the circus, nor partisan either of the Harmolcius or the Socratius at the gladiator fights. I am butchering a lot of these. I actually didn't look up the pronunciations for this, so I apologize. From him too, I learnt the endurance of labor, and to want little, and to work with my own hands, and to not meddle with other people's affairs, and not be ready to listen to slander. From Diogenes. That's a familiar name. not to busy myself with trifling things, and to not give credit to what was said by miracle workers and jugglers about incantations and the driving away of demons and such things, and to not breed wells for fighting, nor give myself passionately to such things, and to endure freedom of speech, and to have become intimate with philosophy, and to have been a hearer, first Vicus, then of Tandius, then of Marcanius, and to have written dialogues in my youth, and to have desired a plank bed and skin, and whatever else kind things belong to Grecian discipline. So basically, so far, Marcus is talking about the different things that he's learned in his life and how smart he is. A bit of a translation there. Diogenes, he's a pretty famous philosopher, one of my favorite philosophers because he's so funny. I definitely recommend looking him up if you haven't already. From Rusticius, I received the impression that my character required the improvement in discipline, and from him I learned not to be led astray by sophistic emulation, nor writing on speculative matters, nor to delivering the ulterior hortations, nor showing myself off as a man who practices such discipline, nor does benevolent acts in order to make a display, and to abstain from the rhetoric, poetry, and fine writing, and to not walk about the house in my outdoor dress, nor to do those things of the kind, and to write letters with simplicity, like in the letter Ruticius wrote to Cilicia, from Cilicia to my mother, and to respect those who have offended me by words or done me wrong, to be easily disposed, to be pacified and recounseled as soon as they have shown readiness to be recounseled, and to read carefully and not be satisfied with superficial understanding of a book, nor hastily give my assent to those who talk overmuch. And I am indebted to him for being acquired with the discourses Epictetus. I feel like I'm doing a better job of it, which he communicated to me out of his own collection. So that paragraph, basically he's saying that he's trying not to be hoity-toity, and he's trying to live more simply. He's not using words that are too big for the average person to understand, and to be straightforward. Back then, it was actually really common to speak more poetically. There was an event in which Sparta ran into some issues with, I think, Athens. And the Spartan speech was more straightforward and was considered coarse. In Athens, being more of the homo philosophers and strategists loved to speak more poetically. So I believe that's what Marcus is talking about here. Is just speaking more straightforwardly. What I find particularly interesting is he's referencing some names that I recognize as gods. And then he's referencing other philosophers. I haven't actually read these before, so I don't know if that's a reference to someone specific or if he's saying, like many other emperors have said historically, that he's actually related to the gods. Like this Apollonius, that is also the Roman god of the sun, I believe. I learned freedom of will and undeviating readiness of purpose, and to look to nothing else, not even for a moment, except to reason, and to always be the same, sharp in sharp pains, on occasion, the loss of the child, and in long illness, and to see clearly in living example that the same man can be both most resolute and yielding, and not peevish in giving his instruction, and to have had before my eyes a man who clearly considered his experience and his skill in expounding philosophical principles as the smallest of his merits, and from him I learnt how to receive from friends what are esteemed favors without being either humbled by them or letting them pass unnoticed. Okay, I'm seeing where the stoicism is coming at. Basically, what Marcus is talking about here is maintaining an even level of emotional control, which is key in stoicism as a philosophy. It's not letting himself be moved too much by things, and to maintain a clear mind even under pain or suffering, both that of physical or emotional, such as the loss of the child. So that is what he's talking about in that paragraph. At least that's my interpretation. From Sextus, a benevolent disposition, the example of a family governed in a fatherly manner, in the idea of living comfortably into nature, in gravity without affection, to look carefully after the interest of friends, and to tolerate ignorant persons and those who form opinions without consideration. He had the power of readily accommodating himself to all, so that intercourse with him was more agreeable than any flattery. And at the same time, he was most highly venerated by those who associated with him. And he had the faculty of both discovering and ordering in an intelligent and methodical way the principles necessary for life. He never showed any anger or any other passion, but was entirely free from passion, and also most affectionate. He could express approbation without noisy display, and he possessed much knowledge without ostentation. So, what Marcus learned from Sextus, is what he's saying here, is he learned how to be agreeable and a good friend. And that's basically what he's talking about. He's saying that he has learned how to not be high and mighty, and to be approachable and likable. If you ever read the 48 Laws of Power, which, gets a bad rap, honestly, I've read most of it. I still need to finish it. But that is also one of the rules, to be agreeable, but not let people trample over you. Alfred and Porter getting all cozy. I hope you guys don't mind my commentary in between each paragraph. I feel like for most people who don't typically read this sort of thing, it might be a little hard to interpret. And this is just interpretations that I'm reading into, uh, just based off of context clues, so I could be wrong. From Alexander the Grammarian, to refrain from fault finding and not be reproachable in a way. Oh, good. Thank you, Spider. And to not be reproachable. Perfect. Thank you, Felucius. That's what I'm calling you today. I might switch between that and Felucas. Be sure to get the clips for your compilation. From Alexander the Grammarian, to refrain from fault finding and not be reproachable in a way to chide those who utter any barbarous or solistic or strange sounding expression, but dexterously to introduce the very expression which ought to have been used, and in the way of answer or giving confirmation or joining any inquiry about the thing itself, not about the word or by some other fit of suggestion. So what he learned from Alexander here is not to overly correct people around them. He's saying that some people may misspeak or misquote things, and that's a really big thing in philosophy groups, even today. It's a joke of actually. He's saying that he's learned from Alexander here not to do that, but to move on and actually talk about the topic at hand rather than getting stuck on the details. From Fontolio, I learned to observe that what envy and duplicity and hypocrisy are in a tyrant, in that generally those among us who are called patricians are rather deficient in paternal affection. I feel like Fontolio might be a bad person. I need to look it up. Mantis, welcome in. We're reading the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. So I'm not getting a straightforward answer. Is Fontolio... So, Fontolio was another prominent Roman orator, and he was Marcus Aurelius's mentor. So he might have not been a bad person, but he showed Marcus how to be a good ruler. So he's referring to some people by their last name, which makes sense. I mean, Fontolio had the first name of Marcus as well. From Alexander the Platonic. Ooh, we've got a title here. Not frequently or without necessity to say anyone or to write in letter that I have no leisure or continually to excuse the neglect of duties required by our relation with those close to whom we would live by alleging urgent occupations. So Alexander here taught Marcus not to say that he's busy every time his friends want to hang out. And, in politics and small groups like that, that's really important to be involved in the community. These are actually really good meditations. So far, we've covered not to be, pretentious, not to have a temper, keep an even keel on your emotions, to be a good friend. It's really good philosophy, honestly, in my opinion, just on a surface level evaluation. Let's see if I can get through this. Name from Cotulius. I feel like that's all right. Not to be indifferent when a friend finds fault, even if he should find fault without reason, but to try to restore him to his usual disposition, and to be ready to speak well of teachers, as it is reported of Domitius and Athendotus, and to love my children truly. So what Marcus is saying here is when your friend says there's something wrong, you need to listen to them and actually hear what they're saying, and not to be a backbiter of his mentors, and to obviously treat his children right. From my brother Severus, to love my kin, and to love truth, and to love justice, and through him I learned to know Thoresius, Aldavius, Cato, Dion, Brutus, and from him I received the idea of polity, in which there is the same law for all. Polity is in a polity administered with regard to equal rights and equal freedom of speech, and the idea of kingly government which respects most of all freedom of the governed. I learned from him also consistency and undeviating steadiness in my regard for philosophy, and disposition to do good, and to give to others readily, and to cherish good hopes, and to believe that I am loved by my friends. In him I observed no concealment of his opinions with respect to those whom he condemned, and that his friends had no need for conjecture what he wished or did not wish, but it was quite plain. So he learnt from his brother how to be honest and a good ruler, is what he's saying here, and to respect the people who are under him. I feel like Marcus Aurelius might be a little slept on, guys. From Maximus I learned self-government, not to be led aside by anything, and cheerfulness in all circumstances. He is really emphasizing keeping a good emotional status, as well as in illness, and a just admixture in the moral character of sweetness and dignity, and to do what was set before me without complaining. I observed that everybody believed that he thought as he spoke, and that in all that he did, he never had any bad intention, and he never showed amazement and surprise, and was never in a hurry, never put off doing a thing, nor was perplexed, nor dejected, nor did he ever laugh to disguise his vexation, nor, on the other hand, was he ever passionate or suspicious. He was accustomed to do acts of beneficious. He was accustomed to do good acts and was ready to forgive, and was free from all falsehood. And he presented the appearance of a man who could not be diverted from right, rather than a man who had been improved. I've observed too that no man would ever think that he was despised by Maximus, or ever venture to think himself a better man. He had also the art of being humorous in an agreeable way. This is very similar lessons that he learned from Maximus as Marcus learned from his brother. Being a more crystal clear person and being a bit more forgiving as a ruler. Again, Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor, and he was labeled as one of the 5 good emperors. So I think we're seeing a lot of that being reflected here in his writing. Because he's been really emphasizing being agreeable and sociable and to be consistent and carry through with his plans or things that he promised, and to keep in mind the rights of people under him. This isn't to say he was a perfect ruler, but I think for the time in which he ruled, this is very ahead of his time. In my father, I observed the mildness of temper. Again, a lot about controlling your anger. Again, he's supposed to be a philosopher of stoicism, so I'm not surprised. But it's very nice to see repeated themes here. An unchangeable resolution in things, which he had determined after due deliberation, and no vainglory, that's a new word, in those things in which all men call honors. So he's not letting himself get caught up in things that other guys think are cool. In the love of labor and perseverance, and a readiness to listen to those who had anything to propose for the common wealth. So there's actually 2, I think this is a typo. So it actually says commonweal, W-E-A-L, and I'm thinking it means commonwealth. So we'll say that's for the commonwealth. And undeviating firmness in giving every man according to his deserts, and knowledge derived from experience of the occasions for vigorous action and for remission. And I observed that he had overcome passion for all boys. Oh no. We're down to the last 2 paragraphs, guys. I think we're going to see some dark stuff. And he considered himself no more than any other citizen. And he released his friends from all obligations to sup with him. Sup means to eat with him or have dinner with him, or to attend him of necessity when he went abroad. And those who had failed to accompany him by the reason of urgent circumstances always found him the same. So basically what he's saying there is that his dad didn't hold things against people if they couldn't join him on trips. I observed, too, his habit of careful inquiry in all matters of deliberation, and his persistency in that he never stopped his investigation through being satisfied with appearances, which first present themselves. So his dad never allowed anything to just be a surface level understanding, and he always looked into things deeper. And that his disposition was to keep his friends and not to be soon tired of them, nor yet extravagant with his affection, and to be satisfied on all occasion and cheerful, and to foresee things a long way off, and to provide for the smallest without display, and to check immediately popular applause and all flattery. So again, he's saying that his dad learned how to keep his emotions in check, but he didn't let himself get caught up whenever somebody was trying to brown nose. And to be ever watchful over the things which were necessarily for the administration of the empire, and to be a good manager of the expenditure and patiently endure the blame which he got for such conduct. He was neither superstitious with respect to the gods, nor did he court men by gifts or by trying to appease him, by flattering the populace. But he showed sobriety in all things and firmness, and was never any mean thoughts or actions, nor love of novelty. So what he's saying here, and this is actually really common of rulers of old, is he didn't get caught up in letting people who claim to be astronomers, speakers for gods, come in and flatter him. And he remained firm in his responsibilities as a ruler, rather than trying to throw crazy parties or spend a lot of money with his friends because that belonged to the Commonwealth. He just did what he had to and endured it whenever he messed up, even if it wasn't exactly his fault. And the things which conduce in any way the commodity of life. That's not a word we use often. And of which fortune gives an abundant supply, he used without arrogance and without excusing himself, so that when he had them, he enjoyed them without affection, and when he had them not, he did not want them. So what I'm understanding that's being said here is whenever he got extra money or gifts, he liked it, but he didn't try to be greedy about it. Nor one could ever say of him that he was either a Sophetius or a homebred flippant slave or a pedant, but everyone acknowledged him to be a man ripe. Where's my mouse? To be a man ripe, perfect above flattery, and to manage his own and other men's affairs. Besides this, he honored those who were true philosophers, and he did not reproach those who pretended to be philosophers, nor yet was he easily led by them. Again, a lot of insistence of not being pretentious. He was also easy in conversation and made himself agreeable without any offensive affection. Took a reasonable care of his body and health, not as one who was greatly attached to life, nor out of regard to personal appearance, nor yet in a careless way, so that through his own attention he very seldom stood in need of the physician's art or of medicine or external applications. So what he's saying here is that his dad looked after his health, didn't take too many crazy risks, but also allowed himself to enjoy things without being too much of a health nut. He was most ready to give way without envy to those who possessed any particular faculty, such as that of the I lost my spot, of eloquence or knowledge of the law or of morals or of anything else, and he gave them his help, that each might enjoy reputation according to his desert. And he always acted comfortably in the institutions of his country without showing any affection of doing so. affectation. Have I been mispronounced? Well, part of my once for streaming is learning how to speak better. So there we go. Affectation of doing so. Further, he was not fond of change nor unsteady. He loved to stay in the same places and to employ himself about the same things. After his paroxysms of headache, he came immediately fresh and vigorous to his usual occupations. His secrets were not but very few and very rare, and these only about public matters. He showed prudence and economy in the exhibition of public spectacles, in the construction of public buildings, his donations to the people, and in such things, for he was a man who looked to what he ought to be done and to the reputation in which got by a man's acts. So again, his dad didn't spend a lot of money on himself and focused more on taking care of the people. And that's what Marcus learned from his father. How to be a good ruler, how to be agreeable, how to live simply. He did not take a bath at unreasonable hours. He was not fond of building houses, nor curious about what he ate, nor about the texture or color of his clothes, nor about the beauty of his slaves. His dress came from Lurium, his villa on the coast, and from Levium. Generally, we know he behaved period. We know how he behaved to the toll collector at Tuculcium, who asked his pardon, and such all his behavior was in him. Nothing harsh, nor implicable, nor violent, nor, as anyone may say, anything carried to the sweating point. He examined things severely, as if he had abundance of time without confusion in an orderly way. Vigorously and consistently, and that might apply to him, which recorded of Socrates, that he was able to both abstain from and enjoy things that many are too weak to abstain from and cannot enjoy without excess, but to be strong enough to bear both, to bear one and to be sober in another, is the mark of a man who was perfect and invincible soul, a perfect and invincible soul, which such as he showed in illness of Maximus. So that was really long. That's a very long paragraph. We've got one more left. But to recap, basically he's saying that his father was a very simple man. He didn't allow himself to be moved by a lot of things that other rulers got moved by. And he didn't purposely try to make people under him nervous. That's what he was talking about during the part where the toll collector was mentioned. He was not harsh or violent, so he didn't get offended easily. And he didn't make people nervous. And he handled things in a leisurely manner. which is very important to act that way because it makes everybody else calm whenever you're in a position of power like that. Again, Marcus is really showing his love for stoicism and keeping an even emotional level at all times, regardless of what is happening around him, which is very important for someone like Marcus or anybody really in a position of power because people will look to you for how they should be responding. All right, one last paragraph. To the gods I am indebted to for having good grandfathers, good parents, a good sister, good teachers, good associates, good kinsmen, and friends. Nearly everything good. Further, I owe it to the gods. I was not hurried in a way. I was not hurried to any offense against any of them, though I had the disposition in which, if the opportunity had offered, might have led me to do something of this kind. So right here, Marcus is saying he had a temper growing up, and if he was given the chance, he would likely have done something that he would have regretted, maybe lashed out violently or said something harsh. But because he had a good family and they taught him through example, he was able to learn to be just as agreeable as his father, his friends, his mentors. But through their favor, there was never any such concurrence of circumstance as to put me through the trial. Further, I am thankful to the gods that I was no longer brought up with my grandfather's concubine. That's interesting. And that I preserved the flower of my... Oh my God. Yes, that's saying what you think it's saying. In that I did not make proof of my virility before the proper season. God, that's awful. If he's saying that, that means that he's heard of it happening to others. But even deferred the time that I was subjected to a ruler and a father who was able to take away all pride from me and to bring me knowledge that it's possible for a man to live in a palace without wanting either guards, nor embroidered dresses, nor torches, nor statues, and such like show. But that it is much in the man's power to bring himself very near to fashion of a private person, without being for this reasoning neither meaner in thought nor remiss in action, with respect to the things which must be done for the public interest in a manner that benefits the ruler. I thank the gods for giving me such a brother who was able by his moral character to rouse me to vigilance over myself, and to who at the same time please me by respect and affection, that my children have not been stupid nor deformed in body, that I did not make more proficiency in rhetoric So he goes from saying, thank God my kids are not dumb or didn't get born with any deformations, to talking about how much he would have rather done poetry or philosophy. That's interesting. That I did not make proficiency in rhetoric, poetry, and in other studies in which I should perhaps been completely engaged. If I had seen that I was making progress in them, that I made haste to those who brought me up in the station of honor, which they seemed to desire, without putting them off hope of doing my time, of doing it sometime after, because they were all still young. I knew that. Oh, no, also, that's not a god; that's a person. So that's confused me, because at the beginning he was referencing Venus and everyone else. So these must be actual people, and now he's actually referring to the gods. Okay. Because they were then still young, I knew Apollonius Reticulus. Hold on, lost my place. Reticulus Maximus, that I received clear and frequent impressions about living according to nature and what kind of life that is, so that so far to depend on the gods and their gifts and help and inspirations, nothing hindered me from being forthwith living according to nature, though I still fall short through my own fault and through not observing the admonitions. Okay. Oh, goodness. Live reading, guys. Isn't it great? Let's see. Nothing hindered me from forthwith living with according to nature, though I still fall short of it through my own fault in not observing the admonitions of the gods, and I may almost say their direct instructions that my body has held out for so long in such a kind of life, that I have neither touched either Bendica or Theodosius, and that have fallen into many amatory passions. I was... Are those children? Hi, boy. Hi, Bubba. I need to look that up. Yeah, more birds. Okay. Bendikia was actually a slave. Yeah, the birds also wish to commentate. So he's saying that he didn't force himself on the people who were under his control. I got really worried for a minute. So Theodosius is also a slave, I'm assuming, just from context. And that after having fallen into amatory passions, I was cured. And though I was often out of humor with Reticius, yeah, he did. He did give him give himself props for basic decency. For context, this guy was an emperor, so yeah, he's going to sit there and say, I could have done it, but I didn't. Look how good I am. Basically, a lot of this is him talking about how great of a person he is because of the influences around him. I mean, also, not really so much basic human decency. He did enslave people, but that was really common for the time. Let's see. Theseus, I never did anything in which I had the occasion, anything of which I had the occasion to repent. So I never did anything wrong by him. That though it was my mother's fate to die young, she spent the last years of her life with me. That whenever I wished to help a man in his need or any other occasion, I was never told that I had not the means of doing it, and that to myself, same necessity never happened to receive anything from another, that I have such a wife, so obedient, so affectionate, and so simple, that I had abundance of good masters for my children, and that remedies have been shown to me by dreams, both others and against the blood-spitting giddiness that when I had an inclination to philosophy, I did not fall into the hands of any. That is both fascinating and disturbing. I did not fall into the hands of any sophists, and I did not waste any time on writers of histories or in the resolution of syllogisms, or occupy myself in the investigation of appearances in the heavens, for all things require the help of the gods and fortune. Oh, we made it through. I did not look up any of those pronunciations. I'm kind of versed in a lot of Roman and Greek history and mythology. I mean, a lot of people are. So I was able to kind of get through that without needing to. Let's see. What else do we have requested? We got Marcus is done. We read the Korean creation myth earlier. And then Veslaria, I believe. Let me see. Yes, Veslaria requested that I read one of the letters to a young poet. So give me a second, I'm gonna look those up. So I'm actually getting this off the Internet Archive. And she asked for any of the last three. So let's go down to towards the end of the book. Let's see. That's the afterword. Like there's a chronology. Notes. So this is actually really short. I think I've got, I want to read one of the longer ones. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pages. I think this is the third to last. But I'm trying to see if I find the right thing. But, let's see. We'll read one of the shorter ones. This one is the second to last, it looks like. It's from Forberg, Jonsered, Sweden, November 4th, 1904. I'm reading from Letters to a Young Poet by Nix. Welcome in, welcome in. We're doing a reading stream, a cozy reading stream. So if you want to get cozy and listen to me read stuff, because apparently my voice is relaxing, feel free to do so. If just is stopping in to pop in and say hi, that's also fine as well. The VOD will be here if you want to relax later on. I appreciate you stopping in regardless. Right now we're reading Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Reich. I think I'm reading the second to last. This is from Furberg, Jonsered, Sweden. Got something in the chat. Super relaxing. Thank you, Funko Chuck. Let me move this notepad so I'm able to see everyone. My dear Mr. Capus. My dear Mr. Capus, during this time that passed without a letter, I was partly traveling and partly too busy to be able to write. And even today, writing is not going to be easy because I've had to write a good number of letters already, and my hand is tired. If I had someone to dictate to, I'd have plenty to say, but as it is you, I'll have to make do with just a few words in return for your long letter. I think of you often, dear Mr. Capus. I apologize if I mispronounced anyone's name. I didn't look this up. And with such concentration of good wishes that really in some way it ought to help, whether my letters can really be a help to you, well, I have my doubts. Do not say, yes, they are. Just let them sink in quietly without any particular sense of gratitude. And let's wait and see what will come of it. There's not perhaps much purpose in my dealing with the detail of what you wrote, for what I might be able to say to about your tendency towards self-doubt or your inability to reconcile your inner and outer life with or about anything else that assails you. It all comes down to what I have said before, the same desire that you might find enough patience in you to endure and simplicity enough to have faith that you might gain more and more trust in what is hard and in your own loneliness among other people. And otherwise, let life take its course. Believe me, life is bright, whatever happens. And as so to feelings, all feelings are pure, that focus you and raise you up, and an impure feeling is one that only comprises of one side of your nature and so distorts you. And any thoughts that match up to your childhood are good. Everything that makes more of you than you have heretofore been in your best moments is right. Every heightening good, if it occurs in the quick of your bloodstream, if it is not intoxication, not troubling, but a joy one can see right to the bottom of. Do you understand what I mean? And your doubts can become a good quality if you school them. They must grow to be knowledgeable. They must learn to be critical. As soon as they begin to spoil something, or you ask them, why is a thing ugly? Demand hard evidence. Demand hard evidence. Test them. And you will perhaps find them at a loss and short of answer, or perhaps mutinous. But do not give in. Request arguments and act with this kind of attentive, attentiveness and consistency every single time. And the day will come when instead of being demolishers, they will be among your best workers. Perhaps the canniness of all the work of all those at work on building your life. For all, that is all, dear Mr. Kappas, that I can say to you for today. But I'm also sending you the print off the little work that appeared in the Prague journal, Deutsch Arbeit. There I continue to speak to you of life and death and the greatness and splendor of both. Yours, Rainer Maria Reich. All right, so I think I've heard of this before. But letters, it seems like the letters to a poet are a back and forth between Maria and Mr. Kappas. And Mr. Kappas is newer to poetry, and he has a lot of self-doubt. And what Maria is saying here, and this is something that's a really good lesson for anybody who's new to the creative arts or is very passionate about anything that requires a lot of time, is that while your inner voice will say, this doesn't look good, nobody's going to like this, you need to ask that inner critic, why? Why is it not good? A good example of this would be, say you draw a face and you get that little voice in your head and it says to you, it's ugly. You need to ask it, why is it ugly? Is the anatomy off? Is the shading bad? Is the composition weird? Why? And if that inner voice is not able to tell you why, then that's just your self-doubt. But if it is able to tell you why, you need to apply those inner criticisms and make your work better. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what I got from it. This is the first time I've read one of these. I may very well read the whole book now. Hilario's correct. This is a very good book. Oh my gosh. We've already streamed for about an hour or 30 minutes. It doesn't feel like that. This might be a regular thing, guys. I actually really like reading these. Okay. So we got most of the requests in. And the last one we have is Winnie the Pooh. After all that, which is very fun. I think it makes sense. It's a good lesson. I agree. It's a very good lesson for anyone, really. And I hope that my commentary on that helps shed some light a little further, because I know on the surface level, whenever you run into stories and stuff like that, it can be a little difficult to understand because they tend to use a lot of flowery language. So give me just a moment. I don't think I still have Winnie the Pooh book. I want the original book because that's in public domain. So I'm getting this from Project Gutenberg. It's an ebook of the original Winnie the Pooh. This was published in 1926, so it's very much in the public domain. It was originally released back in 2022, back into public domain. Let's see. Chapter 1, in which we are introduced to Winnie the Pooh and some bees, and the story begins. Here is Edward Bear, coming down the stairs now. Bump, bump, bump on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there's really another way. If only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, he is at the bottom, ready to be introduced to you. Winnie the Pooh. When I first heard his name, I said, just as you are going to say, but I thought he was a boy. Christopher Robin says, so did I. Then you can't call him Winnie. I don't. But you said he is Winnie the Pooh. Okay, he is Winnie their Pooh. That's interesting. So it's T-H-E-R instead of the. Don't you know what there means? Yes. Now I do, I said quickly. And I hope you do too, because that's all the explanation you're going to get. Sometimes Winnie the Pooh likes a game of some sort when he comes downstairs. And sometimes he likes to sit quietly in front of the fire listening to a story. This evening. What about a story? Said Christopher Robin. What about a story? I said. Can you Could you very sweetly tell Winnie the Pooh one? I suppose I could, I said. What sort of stories does he like? About himself, because he's that sort of bear. Oh, I see. Could you very sweetly? I'll try, I said. So I tried. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, about last Friday, Winnie the Pooh lived in a forest by himself under the name of Sanders. What does under the name mean? Asked Christopher Robin. It means he had a name over the door in gold letters and lived under it. That's so cute. Winnie the Pooh wasn't quite sure, said Christopher Robin. Now I am. I said a growly voice. Then I will go on, said I. One day, when he was out walking, he came to an open place in the middle of the forest, and in the middle of this place was an oak tree, and from the oak tree there came a loud buzzing noise. Winnie the Pooh sat down at the foot of the tree, put his head between his paws, and began to think. First of all, he said to himself, that buzzing noise means something. You don't get a buzzing noise like that, just buzzing and buzzing, without meaning something. If there's a buzzing noise, somebody's making a buzzing noise. And the only reason for making a buzzing noise that I know is because you are a bee. Then he thought for a long time and said, the only reason I know for being a bee that I know of is making honey. And then he got up and said, the only reason for making honey is so I can eat it. So he began to climb the tree. And he climbed and he climbed and he climbed. And as he climbed, he sang a little song to himself, and it went like this. Isn't it funny how a bear likes honey? Buzz, buzz, buzz. I wonder why he does. Then he climbed a little further and a little further, and then just a little further. And by that time he had thought another song. It's very funny. Thought that if bears were bees, they build their nest at the bottom of trees. And that being so, if bears were bees, we shouldn't have to climb up all these stairs. And he was getting rather tired by this time. So that is why he sang a complaining song. And he was nearly there now. And if he stood on that branch, crack. Oh, help, said Pooh, as he dropped 10 feet. On the branch below him. If only I hadn't, he said, as he bounced 20 feet onto the next branch. You see what I meant to do, he explained, as he turned over his heels and crashed into another branch 30 feet below. What I meant to do. Of course it was rather, he admitted, as he slithered very quickly through the next 6 branches. Of course it all comes, I suppose, he decided, as he said goodbye to the last branch and spun around 3 times and flew gracefully into a grouse bush. It all comes of liking honey so much. Oh, help. Crawled out of the grouse bush, brushed the prickles from his nose, and began to think again. And the first person he thought of was Christopher Robin. Was that me? Said Christopher Robin. In an odd voice, hardly daring to believe it, that was you. Christopher Robin said nothing, but his eyes got larger and larger, and his face got pinker and pinker. So Winnie the Pooh went around to his friend Christopher Robin, who lived behind a green door in another part of the forest. So Winnie the Pooh went around to his friend Christopher Robin, who lived behind a green door in another part of the forest. Good morning, good morning, Christopher Robin, he said. Good morning, Winnie the Pooh, said you. I wonder if you've got such a thing as a balloon about you. A balloon? Yes. I just said to myself coming along, I wonder if Christopher Robin has such a thing as a balloon about him. Just as I said this to myself, thinking about balloons and wondering, what do you want a balloon for, you said. Winnie the Pooh looked around to see nobody was listening, put his paw to his mouth, and said in a deep whisper, honey. But you don't get honey with balloons. I do, said Pooh. Well, it just happened that you had been to a party the day before at the house of your friend Piglet, and you had balloons at the party. You had a big green balloon, and one of Rabbit's relations had a big blue one and have left it behind. And being really too young to go to the party at all. And so you had brought the green one and the blue one with you. Which would you like? You asked Pooh. He put his head between his paws. Ugh. He put his head between his paws and thought very carefully. It's like this, he said. When you go after honey with a balloon, the great thing is to not let the bees know you're coming. Now, if you have a green balloon, they might think you're only a part of the tree and not notice you. But if you have the blue balloon, they might think that you're only part of the sky and not notice you. And the question is, which is most likely? Wouldn't they notice you underneath the balloon? You asked. They might, or they might not, said Pooh. You can never tell with the bees. He thought for a moment and said, I shall try to look like a small black cloud. That will deceive them. Then you better have the blue balloon, you said, and so it was decided. Well, you both went with the blue balloon, but you took your gun with you just in case, just as you always did. And Winnie the Pooh went to a very muddy place that he knew of and rolled until he was black all over. And then, when the balloon was blown up, and when the balloon was blown up as big, so it repeats as big twice. And you and Pooh were both holding onto a string. You let go suddenly, and Pooh Bear floated gracefully up into the sky and stayed there, level with the top of the tree, about 20 feet away from it. Hooray, you shouted. Isn't that fine? Shouted Pooh. Winnie the Pooh down to you. What do I look like? You look like a bear holding a balloon, you said. Not, Pooh said anxiously. Not like a small black cloud in the sky? Not very much. Ah, well, perhaps from here it looks different. And as I say, you can never tell with the bees. I love that bit of commentary. I love that even despite the different iterations of Pooh, they managed to capture his way of speaking so much that it matches the original. This is just very fun to read. He's got a very charming way of talking. There was no wind to blow him nearer to the tree, so there he stayed. He could see the honey, he could smell the honey, but he couldn't quite reach the honey. And after a while, he called down to you, Christopher Robin, he said in a loud whisper. Hello. I don't think the bees suspect something. I think the bees suspect something. What sort of thing? I don't know, but something tells me that they're suspicious. Perhaps they think you're after their honey. It may be that. You can never tell with the bees. There was another little silence, and then he called down to you again. Christopher Robin. Yes. You have an umbrella in your house? I think so. I wish you would bring it out here and walk up and down it with it and look up at me every now and again and say, tut tut, it looks like rain. I think if you did that, it would help with the deception, which we are practicing on these bees. Well, you laughed to yourself and said, silly old bear. though you didn't say it out aloud because you were so fond of him, and you went home for your umbrella. It's very interesting that this is in the second point of view. Oh, there you are, called down Winnie the Pooh as soon as you got back to the tree. I was beginning to get anxious. I have discovered that the bees are definitely now suspicious. Shall I put my umbrella up? You said. Yes, but wait a moment. We must be practical. The important bee to deceive is the queen bee. Can you see which is the queen bee from down there? No. Pity. Well now, if you walk up and down with your umbrella, saying tut tut, it looks like rain. I shall do what I can by singing a little cloud song, such as a cloud might sing. Go. So you walked up and down and wondered if it would rain, and Winnie the Pooh sang this song. How sweet to be a cloud floating in the blue. Every little cloud always sings aloud. How sweet to be a cloud floating in the blue. It makes him very proud to be a little cloud. The bees were still buzzing as suspiciously as ever. Some of them indeed left their nest and flew all around the cloud as it began the second verse of the song. One bee even sat down on the nose of the cloud for a moment, then got up again. Christopher, ow! Robin, called the cloud. Yes. I have just been thinking, and I may have come to a very important decision. Bees are the wrong sort of bees. Are they? Quite. The wrong sort. So I should think that they would make the wrong sort of honey, wouldn't you? Would they? Yes. So I think I shall come down. How? Asked you. Winnie the Pooh hadn't thought about this. I don't think he thinks about anything. If he let go of the string, he would fall. Bump. And he didn't like that. And he didn't like the idea of that. So he thought for a long time and said, Christopher Robin, you must shoot the balloon with your gun. Have you got your gun? Of course I have, you said. But if I do that, it will spoil the balloon. But if you don't, said Pooh, I shall have to let go, and that would spoil me. And when he put it like this, you saw how it was, and you aimed very carefully for the balloon and fired. Ow, said Pooh. Did I miss? You asked. You didn't exactly miss, said Pooh. But you missed the balloon. I'm so sorry, you said, and you fired again. And this time you hit the balloon and air slowly came out, and Winnie the Pooh floated to the ground. But his arms were so stiff from holding onto the string of the balloon. Thinks very slowly, like a very slow printer. Exactly. Hi, Alfred. He just wants to be acknowledged sometimes. More bird. Yes. More bird. But his arms were so stiff from holding onto the string of the balloon all that time that they stayed up straight in the air for more than a week. And whenever a fly came and settled on his nose, he had to blow it off. And I think, but I'm not sure, That is why you, and that, and that is why he was, that is why he's, goodness, that is why he's, that is why he was always called Pooh. Took me 6 times, but here we go. Is that the end of the story? Asked Christopher Robin. That's the end of that one. There were others. About Pooh and me, and Piglet, and Rabbit, and all of you. Don't you remember? I do remember. And then when I try to remember, I forget. That day when Pooh and Piglet tried to catch a heffalump, they didn't catch it, did they? No. Pooh couldn't. Because he hasn't any brain. Did I catch it? Well, that comes into the story. Christopher Robin nodded. I do remember, he said. Only Pooh does it very well. So that's why he likes having it told to him again. Because then it's a real story and not just remembering. That's how I feel, I said. Christopher Robin gave a deep sigh and picked up his bear by the leg and walked off to the door, Pooh trailing behind him. At the door, he turned and said, Coming to see me have my bath? I might, I said. I didn't hurt him when I shot him, did I? Not a bit. He nodded and went out, and in a moment, I heard Winnie the Pooh bump, 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 going up the stairs behind him. That is so cute. And it looks like that was perfectly timed. So, we've got a few more minutes until the end. What did you guys think? Did you like this sort of stream? Is this something that you guys will request more? I never knew that the book was telling us, was a story about telling a child a story. It's adorable. Yes, it is adorable. I've never actually read the original. If I do make this a common thing, we may just go through the whole book. Because that's so cute. I have enjoyed this. That's good to hear. I'm glad. I think this is very good for me because I do want to learn how to be a better speaker, and reading aloud may help me. Thank you guys so much for being so patient with me as I stumbled over some words. I'll try to look up more pronunciations before I come in and read, but I don't think that helps very much, if I'm being honest. Very nice, very cozy. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think this might be a very popular VOD. But if you guys want, we can also make this a common thing. I don't think I'll do it every week, but every other week might be a good idea. Because I do want to play games outside of Hytale. I may adjust it so that Cozy Stream shows up. It's nice having a bit of quiet time. Something uncommon in a fast-paced experiences of adulthood. Yes, I think that's what's been happening a lot, at least with my content, how I talk, and I don't have a lot of big emotional responses to things. It's sort of low stimulation. That's what I'm assuming based on the feedback that I've heard. So this might be a good niche and a good space for everybody to have a bit of quiet time and kind of remember what it's like to have bedtime stories read to them. I also did have a lot of fun. I really liked reading the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Stoicism is an interesting philosophy. A lot of people will claim that they understand Stoicism, but you actually have to study it in order to understand it. And it was just so funny to me, the distance between the content that we read together today, where I covered the creation myth of Korea, and then I went on and read a philosophy book, and then we ended on Winnie the Pooh. Clearly, all the great literary works in one stream. But I think that was a great thing to end it on. Let us settle on some of the information that we got today. Not everything really has to be deep in thought, and sometimes it's better if it's not, if I'm being completely honest. But I really did have a lot of fun talking to you guys. As always, I'm going to end stream around here, so I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. If it's nighttime for you. If you're watching the VOD, I hope you are having a restful sleep or a restful time watching the VOD. And I want you guys to get something good to eat, something good to drink, and take care of yourself. And I will see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone.